Do you ever feel like your body and the cycles that you're experiencing every month are telling you more than just the fact that you're menstruating or you're ovulating or you're fertile or not? If so, I'm so excited to share an amazing book resource that you are going to absolutely love, as well as its author today on my podcast. If you're new here, I'm Rita Johnson, the owner of Health and Hormones. And here we talk about all things related to health, hormones, gut health, unpacking these amazing bodies of yours and how best we can support them. So today I'm super excited to be joined with my friend, Christina Valenzuela. Christina, let me tell you a little bit about her before I bring her on. Christina is the owner and creative director of Pearl and Thistle, where she offers a unique blend of theology and science to bring better body literacy to Catholic families and parishes. She's certified instructor in the Boston Crosscheck Method of Natural Family Planning and holds a master's degree in theological studies from Harvard Divinity School. She's a life professed member of the lay fraternities of St. Dominic. Christina resides with her husband and children outside of Boston. Christina, I'm so excited to have you here with me today.
Oh my gosh, Rita, thank you so much for having me on. It's so great to chat with you again.
Yes, I know. So, for those of you that have been around for a while, I interviewed Christina, gosh, it was probably a couple of years ago now,
Yeah. Hmm.
which is crazy. I feel like we just were here talking, which part of that I think too is in this world of Catholic business friends, moms, entrepreneurs. It's like we just have very unique strengths and also struggles. And so we can pick right up where we left off anytime.
That's
We
right.
have the blessing to.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to share with you all Christina's. I still think I could say new, right? It
Yeah,
was
like a year
published in
and a
the last year.
half. Yeah, it's
Okay,
still
a
new. It's
year and a
still a
half.
baby book. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So early 2024. And Christina's book is The Language of Your Body, Embracing God's Design for Your Cycle. This is what it looks like. I was telling Christina right before we hopped on to record that just last week I was out to lunch with a girlfriend and she was telling me she was just raving about this amazing book she's reading. And it's been such a great resource for her. And she said, the girl even talks about why it's so important for nuns to chart their cycles. And she was really taken aback by that, which was so cute. And so anyway, tell our audience a little bit about, maybe the brief summary. I'm going to let you do the elevator pitch on the book and then we can dive in.
Sure. Yeah. The language of your body is really an attempt to synthesize both the biology, the science, right, of menstrual cycles, which is always growing and expanding. Like in the last 20, 25 years, we've had a huge influx of new knowledge about menstrual cycles, right? Making sure that all of that contemporary medical knowledge is at the service of our understanding of who woman is in the kind of like theological framework of Catholicism. And so, what I want to kind of root ourselves in is this understanding that like our biology helps us to understand who we were created to be. So, it's a book that explores not just kind of the practicals of like, well, okay, what is a menstrual cycle? What's going on in our bodies? What are the changes that are happening? But also, like, what could this mean for us as individuals, as women who are seeking understanding and holiness in our relationships, especially with God? So the book really kind of does flow in and out between those kind of the science and the theology very interchangeably.
Yes, for sure. I honestly, I don't know why, but I wasn't thinking in the realm of, I wasn't thinking it would be a very theological heavy book, but it is so, and it's not, when I say theological heavy, I don't mean in terms of its understandability. I feel like it's extremely accessible. It's just that like the theology is so rich. It's so beautiful how much it's present on every page. And I am just loving that. It's funny. I always have a stack of books by my side of the bed. And if I'm going to adoration, I'll be like, okay, which one's a spiritual read? Like these are the books I'm
Mm.
really into or really enjoying. Which ones could I grab and bring to adoration with me? And I could totally bring your book to adoration with
Oh,
me.
that's
Like it's
great.
just so beautiful to like meditate on that and what the
Mm.
Lord is doing and has done by making us female, by giving us this cycle that we experience every single month. And I think too, I just want to nod to this real quick, kind of mentioning like the current research, the new body of research that we have on women's bodies. And I just interviewed Dr. Naomi Whitaker, who
Oh,
talks
yeah,
very
sure.
loudly about how, the modern medicine has liked to shut down the female body, especially in regards to research studies and that kind of thing. And she talked about that, about how, they'll essentially make our body male in terms of shutting down those hormonal shifts, because then we're easier to study. But
Right.
then that actually does the exact opposite of what we want, which is to really understand our cycles
Mhm.
more. And I think also one more thing in that realm is in the Catholic understanding of our cycles and our fertility. Well, a lot of us went through like NFP for marriage prep, or we use
Yep.
NFP for, just fertility and fertility, but we're really missing out if that's all we're using our cycle charting for. So I would love to set you up with that question, Christina. Tell
Yeah.
me, what are some of those things that we are missing out on if that's all we're looking at our cycle for, is just when you're fertile, infertile, when you can be intimate with your spouse and not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of simple, practical, even secular explanation, what would we be missing, is that there's plenty of reason to assume or to understand that our menstrual cycles are a vital sign of health at this point. Everything that we are learning about the body is that women's bodies uniquely are designed for this ebb and flow of these different hormones in different ratios at different times. And so there's so much even of our long-term health, like bone health and, the health of our brain and our heart health and all of this, that really depends on this cyclical flow of hormones. So I think that's like one baseline level that I think everybody could agree on. We probably need more education on this. But for women who are in the Catholic sphere, I think it's a lot deeper, because I think there are a lot of times where we want to make femininity, however we want to encapsulate that, whether we want to say like the feminine genius or spiritual motherhood, or however we want to talk about this, we can make it kind of one dimensional. And when we rob our understanding of woman in her spiritual sense from the foundation of her biology, I think we're missing something that is actually really crucial to how we are designed to function, right? Your spirit doesn't function outside of your body, right? Your body is enlivened by your spirit. And so when we better understand what our body is doing, then I think we can have a better understanding of who we are, how God has uniquely made woman different from man. But then also we can start thinking about like, well, how does this understanding of me being rooted in my biology and appreciating that, how can that change my understanding of the relationship that I am supposed to have with man, but maybe also with God? And so you can bring things to your prayer life. You can bring things to just how you would consider maybe kind of maximizing diet or exercise or something like that with different cycle phases, and kind of trying to line those things up. You could also consider how your moods and your energy levels and even sort of the way that you relate to God shifts throughout your cycle. And I'm very quick to say in my book that I don't want anything to sound prescriptive, like every woman has to follow like a cycle synced prayer life regimen. I think that's very silly. But I do think in this day and age when society at large is kind of confused about what makes a woman, right? Being able to pinpoint this biology and have it be right there in tandem with our spiritual understanding of womanhood and our whole person anthropology, Christian anthropology of womanhood, is really, really important as we're going to be raising our daughters and as we're trying to navigate these sort of muddied messages from the world.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, I loved that so much. I loved the thought of, even if it's just having the expectation or understanding that even the way that we're relating to the Lord is different based on different times of our cycle. Because I think that sometimes just having that basis of knowledge of, like, you can work out differently for your cycle, even if all you needed from that, your like true takeaway was that, like, I can give myself rest days during menstruation, right? Like, even if that's
Amen.
all
Yes.
you come away from, and
Yes.
truly, when I think about like praying with my cycle, sometimes all I can handle in that moment is just coming away from it, where like some days of the month, I might just, my early morning prayer time might just look like, "Ugh,
Hmm.
here I
Hmm.
am, Lord.
Yep.
Just
Exactly.
help me do it anyway." Like, right. And that is so beautiful though. Even just if that's where you're at and that's all you can embrace, That's beautiful. And if you're at a place where you're like, I can really try this on. I can really dive deeper. I love how well your book walks through an awareness that can really help us to dive deeper into our prayer life in those unique ways. And I absolutely love that. Um, okay, so in your book, you talked about the difference in uh, hiding with God
Mm,
versus hiding from God. And I think
yeah.
that especially in this realm of educating girls on their cycles, embracing as adult women our cycles, this is so prevalent, right? And so how do you see in our well, maybe let's start with just like in general, what did you mean by that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that I've noticed a tension, right? That there's a noticeable tension in the kind of the way that we talk about menstrual cycles. And there's this sort of natural barrier that a lot of people have about like, this is private, I don't want to talk about it. Right. And I want to honor that impulse. If a woman feels like this is something that is very private and personal and she doesn't want to talk about it, I don't think there's a reason we have to be telling her like own your womanhood, like free bleed and do all this stuff. I think that there is something very meaningful in the way that we hold on to experiences that are meaningful, the way that we gather things up and we reverence them in the quietness of our hearts with God. But I think where we go wrong is when we have that impulse to hide it because we're shamed, right? So Mary has a hiddenness with God because she's so close to him. Adam and Eve hide themselves purposely because they're ashamed. And so the action of like hiding or retreating from a public sphere whenever we're talking about this stuff, it may look the same based on different motivations. And so it's very important to have the right motivation. So if you are inclined to be somebody who wants to be more private and more personal about your cycles, if you have a hard time verbalizing things or externalizing things, especially like if you're a mom who has a hard time talking to your daughter, like I don't want to say that you're wrong for that, but we want to make sure that that's coming from a place of closeness and intimacy rather than a place of shame. And so that's really where I wanted to kind of honor that impulse that some women have, that a lot of women may have, without kind of giving us permission to be ashamed or to make it a taboo thing. That's a very different thing.
I love what you say there. And for me, a lot of that has come more to light the way that I have to grapple with these things raising my daughters. My oldest daughter is almost 15 and then the second one is 12, and helping them to have those conversations, to be able to be do it differently than I was taught when I was growing up, because it was more of a you don't talk about it, even if it was like in a context of but I need some pads. Like you
Mm,
wrote it on a sticky note and they magically appeared. Like that was so there's that extreme.
right.
And although we may have that, and that's really where when you say about the intention of like praying about like where are you coming from and how are you doing this is really important. But I also think too, and I'm going to kind of go there. I also think that it bleeds over into our when we're called to marriage, it bleeds over into our conversations with our husbands. We
Sure.
have to be able to have these conversations with our husbands. And so that can be tricky if you have such a hard time bringing something up that you don't even want to talk to your husband about. And I do think that that's where, and you talk about this in the book too, but that's where that element of the shame, more like the Adam and
Hmm.
Eve hiding it away from God with
Right.
shame. And we really need to discern and pray and heal, I think, a lot of times from that, to be able to
Hmm.
still maybe embrace I'm going to hide with God, but doing
Hmm.
that differently. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there too, Christina?
I mean, yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I do have a section towards the end of the book. So the first, if somebody's going to pick up the book, you should probably know the first part of the book is really kind of like the theology chunk. The second part of the book is kind of the practical chunk. And so I do have a chapter in that second half that is about, relationships and husband and wife, right? And how husbands can even better understand their wives and how you can have a better marriage if both of you are equipped to kind of honor the natural rhythms of a woman's body and to accept them without shame, without taboo, being able to openly embrace this aspect of yourself. And it sounds so silly when you sit and be like, well, your husband should accept all of you. Yeah, okay. That shouldn't be a revolutionary thing to say, but I think in this world, when there can be that kind of barrier to understanding because we haven't been educated, men or women often haven't been educated about this, we don't know how to properly love and to respond to those needs of the women in our lives, or to properly communicate our needs to our husband. That's another thing that I talk about, is like learning how to speak up and ask for what you need, right? That it's allowing him to love you in a particular way if you express that need and you express your desire for him to help you there.
Yeah, so beautiful. And it totally called me out. I have read about the first half, y'all. Sorry about that,
No,
Christina.
it's totally fine.
I am going to finish it though. It is so good. It is
I've
so,
heard
so
that it's
good.
kind of, I've heard that people think that it's going to be kind of a quick read, and then they find it being a lot more dense and maybe thought-provoking than they had anticipated, so it slows them down. So that's what I've heard from a lot of women with the book.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely there's been so many times, and I think that that type of feedback tells you that as well. But there's been so many times that I'm reading this and I'm like, I mean, I knew God gave me a great gift in my friend Christina, but holy crow, that's amazing.
Oh.
Right. So going back to when I was sharing that my girlfriend, when we went out to lunch, that she was talking about reading your book. She also then mentioned, she said, and I think I'll know the answer to your question here, but she said, I just wish I could ask her if she has a recommendation for how to teach my daughters how to cycle chart that are in their teens. So I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, so my very self-serving recommendation is that I have a number of materials that I have written specifically for you. So I run a business called Pearl and Thistle. And so this book really is the culmination of my work spanning over a decade at this point, serving women and couples at all these various touch points in our reproductive lives and in this sort of education journey of body literacy. And that first point where we really do some like actual education on the menstrual cycle is in that time of like right before a first period. So I have a program called Cycle Prep, which is a video course. But then following Cycle Prep, after a girl gets her first period, I have a book called Cycle Charting for Girls. It's available on Amazon, or it's available on my website. And it's a simple little introduction to charting that does not cover all of the details of fertility. It doesn't talk about calculating a fertile window. What it does is it talks to girls about, number one, why your cycles in the first few years after getting your period can be irregular, and that's usually okay. So it kind of has a section that's a medical section about like, here's the things that you would want to look for that would be concerns, but here are the variations that are totally normal for you to see within this time of transition in your life, because it's different for teens than it is for grown women. So I want moms to know that too. And then just to like gradually learn how to track the patterns of your cycles. And eventually they get to the advanced section where you could look for ovulation as a healthy sign. So that's called cycle charting for girls. And if a mom liked my book, I would definitely encourage her to check that out because it reflects a lot of the same values. It's not explicitly Catholic, because it's for a younger age group. And I think that they need more practical things than theoretical things at that age to get them introduced to their cycles. When they get older, then I have a book that's called Cycle Charting for Single Women. And that's where I introduce more of the theological concepts when they're a little bit beyond that initial kind of adolescent stage.
Beautiful. So helpful. So helpful. Um, all right. Well, I really wanted to read a little like a paragraph excerpt of the book. And
Oh,
honestly, as
sure.
I look back on my notes, I have so many starred that I was like, oh man, I don't even know. I really felt like the Lord would show me which one at the
Mm.
towards the end of our interview that I just really wanted to share. But I just really have to say, if you guys were at all on the verge of buying Christina's book or interested and not sure, you just need to read it because it's all so good that like I can't even like tell you just this one little part. I'm gonna read one. I'll
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
pick the last one. But I just have loved it so much. It is such a beautiful, wonderful beautiful read, so enriching and very spiritual, especially for me so far. And like I said, I'm about 100 pages in, so I'm still deep in the theology part, but it's been so spiritually thought provoking that
Mm.
I just have loved it so much. Okay, so this is under a section, Meditation on the Body as a Path to Knowledge. It may seem odd at first to consider how our menstrual cycles image God, because the fact is that many women do suffer through very difficult experiences with cycles and periods. Pain, shame, embarrassment, illness, or the cross of infertility may all lead us to think that our cycles and periods are things of the devil rather than our good, loving Father. Yet those experiences of physical and psychological evil through our cycles are not constitutive of our cycles themselves. They're a result of our bodies living in this fallen world. Therefore, the more we can do to dive deeper into understanding our design and biology as women, the more clearly we will be able to discern the beauty and goodness of God's design amidst the messiness of everything else. Christina is so beautiful. It's
Oh.
just, I just feel like it's so affirming of, regardless of where, what your experience has been, where you're coming from, there's something so rich to be
Mhm.
found in the biology of our bodies, and seeing that as a story that can also lead us back to the Lord, right? And so that's really where that biology becomes theology.
Mhm.
But I just loved that so much. And one other thing it kind of brings up for me, and something I'm sure you see in your work as well, is I think that sometimes there is this struggle of like discerning between, is this a cross I'm supposed to carry, like painful
Ah.
periods? Is this
Mhm.
something that I'm just supposed to suffer with? Or is this something that I'm supposed to lay down? That I'm
Mhm.
supposed to dive into understanding how and when can I support my body better, and how can I move forward to that? So, can you speak to that, like those two differences, and what you recommend to people when they're struggling there?
I mean, I'm inclined, I am of the theological persuasion that it's very, very important that we should not say that God wants us to suffer. God does not desire our suffering. What God desires is that when we are suffering, we invite him into that suffering with us. And so we unite that suffering to his and we offer it up on the cross. So when we can say two things, when we can say, I am suffering, right? And this is an evil that I am experiencing, and that Christ wants to be with me and sanctify me in this suffering, then we're allowed to do everything in our power to properly alleviate that suffering, including praying for the release from that suffering, right? So you can go to the doctor, you can do the regimens, you can, as long as you're feeling like this is how I want to pursue healing in my body, right? Do that with God's blessing and know that sometimes the answer of healing is no. We have to trust that that is for our greater good and that Christ is with us in that. So I don't think, I think it's really hard sometimes because the line that I frequently use is, a lot of times with women's issues, we're told to suck it up, right? This is just what it is. Just suck it up. This is just what you have to deal with. And I feel like that is just a lie from the pits of hell, right? Like there's a big difference between sucking something up and offering something up. And I think we really need to ask ourselves when we're facing that suffering and we're struggling with that, we should ask ourselves, okay, am I in a space where I've given up hope, I'm in a state of despair and I'm sucking it up? Or am I uniting myself to Christ in this and am I offering it up? Those are two very different realities.
For sure. Yeah. And I think very different places to live too. Whether you're in despair or, and it's also different if you're pursuing your path
Hmm.
to health, if you're pursuing getting
Hmm.
answers, and maybe it's some other random crazy thing that I haven't tried that's actually going to be the solution to my problem. It's living from a place of hope when you're
Yes.
living in that place, as opposed to despair, which, yes, I think that's a really good thing to take up in prayer. If you're struggling in that way, if you're trying to figure out, am I more leaning towards despair or am I living with hope? Just ask the Lord to help reveal those things to you, because
Hmm.
I do see women, and I think this is particularly and not necessarily, whether married or religious or single, but I do see women really struggling with this, especially in the
Oh, yeah.
Catholic sphere. I think it's a very big thing that we need to be talking about more. So thank you. Thank you
Hmm.
for that beautiful answer. Well, Christina, tell us where people can find you. Are you on socials? And then I'll include the links for those programs you mentioned in the description of this video as well.
Yeah, so I have said that my business name is Pearl and Thistle. So you can find me at pearlandthistle, all spelled out.com. And then my Instagram and my Facebook handle are exactly the same. So at Pearl and Thistle, all spelled out.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being on today. This was so great. I cannot wait to go finish the book. And I hope you all will get your own copy because it is so fabulous and enriching. And pass it along too. Share it with others because this is really, we need to continually talk about the beauty of our cycles so that we can affect this cultural shift that is happening of the ways that we are beautiful inside and out as women, as disciples of the Lord. So thank you so much for joining us today, Christina.
Thank you, Rita.